All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, so picture this. Imagine a year just packed with music, so much innovation that some people actually say it was rock music's. Well, its last big wave. Now, think about bringing that exact sound, that whole vibe back, not with like a DeLorean, but with AI, artificial intelligence. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a really ambitious project by TATANKA. It's 4 hours long, called 1985, an AI Requiem for the Last Great Wave of Rock. So our mission here is to really break down how this thing works, how it doesn't just copy, but sort of preserves the actual feel, the sounds, the atmosphere of 1985 New Wave. And we'll get into this fascinating, sometimes kind of surprising mix of, human creativity and this really cutting-edge AI.
Yeah, and I think the really key thing here, it's way more than just looking back. It's like they're doing sonic archaeology, actively digging up sounds, but also creating something new. The big idea they're playing with really is using AI not just to mimic stuff, but as a genuine creative partner, a tool in the studio.
Well, right, like another instrument.
Exactly. That's a really crucial way to think about it. And that's what we're going to explore. We're going to figure out how this very specific, you could say pivotal moment in music is being made real again sonically for people listening now. And we'll get into why preserving it like this, using history, sound tech, AI, why that actually matters to you, whether you remember 85 or you're just hearing this stuff for the first time. Should be pretty interesting.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Why 1985? What was it about that specific year? Why call it a zenith for New Wave?
Well, digging into it, 1985 it was really a fascinating year. It had this incredible balance. On one hand, you had songs that were super accessible, total pop hits. But on the other, there was this real, avant-garde exploration happening, pushing boundaries.
So catchy but weird. Kind of, yeah. Artists were really experimenting with electronics, new studio tracks, but still writing amazing hooks. So the music felt immediate, emotional, but also really sonically adventurous, which is not always an easy thing to pull off. And technically, it was this moment where, warm analog synths, they started blending really beautifully with the first wave of clear, sharp digital tools.
Ah, okay. So that created a specific sound.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They gave everything this kind of glossy, almost cinematic feel. Very polished. But crucially, didn't lose that raw energy from earlier post-punk. And if you think bigger picture, you've got MTV just exploding, right?
Right.
Making music videos essential.
Right. The visual aspect became huge.
Totally. And you had scenes in Europe and the US influencing each other, bouncing ideas back and forth. Plus, there's this sort of late Cold War mood hanging over everything. It favored atmosphere, maybe a bit of melancholy sometimes.
And fashion, movies, that all played into it.
Oh, absolutely. Fashion, film, graphic design, it wasn't separate. It all fed back into the music, creating this really cohesive, immersive cultural moment.
Now, the project makes a pretty bold claim that 1985 New Wave might have been rock's last great evolution. That's a big statement. Whether you buy that or not, it's undeniable that year was packed with technically impressive and really emotionally powerful music. So for you listening, keep that in mind as we go. Does this project, this recreation, make a good case for 85 being rock's last big innovative push?
Yeah, that's really the core challenge they took on. Some argue that period was kind of the last stand for rock dominating the mainstream.
Yeah.
Before genres really fractured.
Yeah.
And before electronic music properly took over.
Okay.
So that mixed rock energy, sophisticated electronics, pop look, it made something unique, maybe a last big hurrah before things got way more fragmented and digital. So recreating 1985 isn't just about getting the synth sounds right. It means capturing the whole cultural vibe, the codes of the era.
How things felt, not just how they sounded.
Exactly. Understanding how the social stuff, the visuals, even politics all kind of wove together into that sound. TATANKA treats the historical research and the sound design as two sides of the same coin. Inseparable.
All right, this is where it gets really fascinating for me. The how. How did they actually nail that signature 1985 sound with such accuracy? What gear, what studio tricks were vital?
Well, yeah, the sound of 85 often came down to a pretty specific set of instruments and techniques. You absolutely had those classic analog polysynths.
Yeah?
I think the Roland Juno 106, the Sequential Prophet 5.
Oh, yeah, legendary stuff for those big, warm pads.
Exactly, those lush pads, evolving melodies, and then, of course, the Yamaha DX7.
The DX7, you couldn't escape that electric piano sound.
Right, that glassy electric piano, the bell sounds. Instantly recognizable on so many hits. Guitars were often swimming in chorus effect, gave them that shimmering, watery feel. Less for rhythm, more like atmospheric layers, building these really rich textures.
Okay, so synths and guitars handled the atmosphere. What about the beat?
Drums were huge. The Lindrum machine, its punchy grooves were just everywhere. That tight electronic backbone.
The Lindrum.
And then the gated snare reverb. Probably the iconic sound of the era.
Explain that one again, the gated reverb.
Sure. It's where you put reverb on the snare drum, but then use a noise gate to cut the reverb tail off really abruptly. So you get this big splat of reverb, but it vanishes instantly. Gives the snare this huge, powerful, very distinct punch.
Ah, I know exactly the sound you mean now.
Yeah, and for vocals. Often plate reverb, that bright, dense echo sound, sometimes with a tiny delay before the reverb kicks in, called pre-delay.
What does that do, the pre-delay?
It kind of makes the vocal feel more upfront, more present, even while it's drenched in reverb. More intimate somehow. Plus lots of layered vocal doubles to make things sound huge, almost cavernous, but still personal.
Yeah.
And it was all bathed in these really lush reverb and delay effects, shaping the whole soundstage, making everything feel grand.
Wow. Okay, so that's the palette. How did TATANKA actually recreate all that? Did they hunt down vintage gear?
It was more of a hybrid approach, really. They used a mix of things, sampled instruments, or really carefully programmed software emulations of that vintage gear. But then, crucially, they combined that with very specific mixing choices.
Like what?
Things like subtle detuning on synths, just a tiny bit, to make them sound less perfect, more organic, like old analog gear. Using saturation to add some warmth and harmonic richness. And using compression in ways that mimic how old analog consoles or tape machines would glue the mix together and add punch.
So not just copying the notes, but copying the feel of the old equipment.
Exactly. But here's the clever part. They didn't just aim for a perfect, noisy, lo-fi copy of an old record. They balanced those period-accurate sounds, the timbres, with modern production values. Meaning clear stereo imaging, so it sounds wide and immersive on headphones. A solid, clear low end, which old recordings sometimes lacked. And good dynamic range, so it doesn't sound completely squashed.
So it sounds authentically 85, but also sounds good now, on my phone or in the car.
That's the goal. Historically faithful, but enjoyable on modern systems. It's a really tricky balance.
Yeah, that balance between being true to the past and making it work for today sounds incredibly hard. For you listening, it means you get to connect with 85 without it sounding, like a museum piece. What do you think was the biggest challenge for TATANKA in striking that balance? Where is the tension?
That's a great point. I'd imagine the constant temptation was to over-clean it, right? To make it too polished by modern standards, which could actually strip away some of that essential 80s character.
Like making the Lindrum sound too perfect.
Exactly. Those original sounds are iconic, but let's be honest, they could be a bit raw or thin sometimes. Too much modern processing, they sound generic. Too little, they sound dated. So the compromise, the art, was figuring out which flaws were actually part of the charm, essential to the 85 sound, and which were just, limitations of old tech that could be gently smoothed out.
Informed restraint, you called it.
Yeah, knowing when to stop polishing. It's all about taste and deep historical understanding.
Okay, so we've got the sound palette, the production philosophy. Now let's bring in the AI. How does it fit? You said it's not just mimicking, it's a creative partner. What does that actually mean in the studio?
Right, so they really leaned into this idea from Brian Eno. He famously suggested putting a sign over studio doors. This studio is a musical instrument.
Okay.
TATANKA basically applies that thinking to AI. It's not trying to be the human musician. It's another powerful, flexible tool within the studio environment. So it helps out. It can assist with coming up with ideas, maybe suggesting melodies or chord progressions that humans hadn't thought of. It can help explore sounds, generating different timbral variations quickly. It can even sketch out basic arrangement ideas to build on.
So it's like a super-powered brainstorming assistant.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a collaboration. The AI proposes things, sometimes unexpected things. The human then uses their judgment, their taste to select, refine, maybe combine different AI ideas.
The human sculpts the raw material.
Precisely. The final piece is a result of both human artistic decision-making and the AI's generative power. The AI outputs are just starting points. They absolutely need that human touch, the emotion, the intent to become actual music.
That makes sense. But with AI being so involved, how do they handle transparency, making sure people know how it was made, ensuring it feels, artistically honest?
That's a really important point. They seem very conscious of it. They set up clear ethical and aesthetic guidelines. Like meticulously crediting all the human artists, being really upfront and transparent about what parts were generated or assisted by AI, and crucially, constant, careful curation by the humans at every single step. They even list the specific software tools they use, things like ChatGPT, Meta.ai, Producer.ai for generating material.
Yeah, they name the specific AI models.
Yeah, and the DAW, the recording software, like Audacity on Ubuntu Linux, that level of detail.
Okay.
It kind of demystifies the whole process, doesn't it? It invites a discussion about AI and art rather than hiding it. It's about owning the methodology.
Right, transparency is key. Okay, let's get down to the real nuts and bolts then. How do you actually tell an AI, make me a 1985 new wave track? What does that text-to-music prompting look like?
Yeah, they developed a really rigorous methods for this. It wasn't just typing 80s song. It involved crafting these super detailed text prompts. Think of the prompts almost like a musical score, but written in words for the AI.
Okay.
These prompts had to encode really specific instructions, the exact instruments they wanted, like Juno 106, DX7, Prophet 5, the production style like glossy cinematic feel, even the emotional tone balancing melancholy and euphoria, or cold yet emotional vocals, and references to the era itself.
Can you give an actual example?
Sure. One example they shared was something like a lush 1985 new wave track with shimmering analog synthesizers, Juno 106, DX7, Prophet 5, driving chorus-drenched guitar riffs, punchy Lindrum beats, melodic and moody bass lines, cold yet emotional male-female vocals with reverb and delay, atmospheric pads, and anthemic hooks. Crisp production with a glossy cinematic feel, balancing melancholy and euphoria.
Whoa. That's incredibly specific.
Right. And they'd add other details, maybe specifying gothic atmosphere mixed with pop accessibility, or sometimes just throwing in curveballs like weirdness. 100%.
Okay. So you feed that prompt in, and perfect 1985 music comes out.
Not quite. It was very iterative. They generate something based on the prompt, listen critically.
Audition it.
Yeah, audition it. Maybe the AI nailed the synth sound, but the drums felt wrong or the mood wasn't quite there. So they'd go back, tweak the prompt maybe slightly, maybe drastically, and generate again. And again.
Like workshopping a song, but with an AI.
Exactly. It mirrors traditional songwriting, but kind of compresses that early sketching phase through rapid iteration. Lots of trial and error to find that sweet spot. Then, once they had AI-generated material that felt promising, maybe a good chord progression, a cool synth line, a basic beat that became the raw ingredient, they'd pull that into their DAW, their recording software. And that's where the intensive human work really ramped up again.
Editing, arranging.
Meticulous editing, layering performed parts on top, maybe replacing a stiff AI baseline with a real performance. And applying that analog-style processing we talked about, saturation for warmth, tape emulation for that subtle glue, and lots of manual automation, tweaking parameters over time to make it breathe and feel human.
So adding the imperfections back in almost.
In a way, yes, especially with vocals. Ensuring the phrasing, the breathing, the emotion felt real, not robotic. The whole workflow really emphasizes human curation. The AI explores the possibilities, but humans refine, shape, and ultimately inject the soul.
Okay, that paints a much clearer picture. So stepping back, what's the bigger meaning here? Beyond making cool retro sounds, what's the lasting significance of a project like this for us listening for music history?
Well, I think it operates on a few levels. It's definitely an act of what you might call sonic preservationism. It makes these sounds, these production techniques, audible and available again, especially textures that might fade as old gear dies or the original engineers aren't around anymore.
Keeping the sound alive.
Exactly. But it also, I think, forces us to ask some interesting questions about authenticity. Like, who gets to recreate the past? And how should we think about these recreations? TATANKA seems to position it as both genuine homage, like a love letter to 1985, but also as an inquiry, a way to explore those questions openly. It starts a conversation.
And there's an educational side, too.
Oh, absolutely. Huge educational value. For anyone studying music production or engineering, it's like a masterclass in 80s techniques. You can really hear how synths, drum machines, effects all work together.
A practical example.
Right. And even for casual listeners, like you said, it builds historical literacy. You start to understand how certain sounds make you feel a certain way. You connect the production choices to the emotional impact. You begin to hear the why behind the sound. And ultimately, I think the project makes a bigger point about technology and memory. It shows that new tools, like AI, can actually help us preserve and understand cultural history, but only if they're used thoughtfully, respectfully. With technical skill, yes, but also with cultural humility, knowing you're handling something important.
Right. It's not just tech for tech's sake. It's technology in service of preserving and exploring history.
Precisely. It demonstrates how we can reanimate the past, not just archive it, but engage with it creatively, keeping it vibrant.
So wrapping this up, we've really explored how TATANKA's 1985 project is this fascinating meeting point of history, technology, and pure artistry. It's clearly more than just a long album. It's, like you said, part history lesson, part tech experiment, and definitely a heartfelt tribute to a unique year in music. It feels like a testament to what humans can do when they partner creatively with these powerful new tools, reaching across time like that. And by recreating 1985 so meticulously, it kind of holds up a mirror to music today, doesn't it? Lets
Yeah.
us measure where we are now against that moment of really distinct innovation, gives us perspective on music's journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really drives home that idea of AI, not just as imitation, but as a genuine collaborator, something that can shine a light on the past, but also maybe point towards new ways of creating in the future. It shows technology can be a bridge to understanding, not just a disruptive force.
It definitely leaves you thinking. This whole deep dive into 1985, into this human AI partnership, it makes you wonder what other lost sonic eras could be brought back like this, with this much care. And maybe more fundamentally, how will tools like these change what we even mean by originality or creativity in music going forward? Definitely something to chew on.